Welcome to Fight News Now. I am your host, John Ramdeen. Coming up in today's show, Robin Black and I are chatting about some of the big fights happening at UFC 198. We'll also take a look at the UFC's latest episode of Embedded, and the UFC Countdown takes a look at Jacare and Vitor Belfort. All that and more in this edition of Fight News Now, and it starts right now. Joined by my good buddy Robin Black. UFC 198 goes down this weekend in Curitiba, Brazil, the birthplace of Chute Boxe. Of course, the main event, the heavyweight championship of the world on the line. Many people are calling Fabrizio Verdum kind of the underrated greatest heavyweight of all time because of his accolades, because of his evolving skill set, because of his jiu-jitsu. However, everybody recognizes that Stipe Miocic is a legitimate challenge. The main event, the co-main event, Jiu-Jitsu is Jacare versus the Phenom Vitor Belfort. So many thrilling fights on this card. Anderson Silva also on the card. What else is on the main card?
You know, they're all fighting Brazil.
They're all
fighting a stadium in Brazil, every one of them. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. Stipe is fighting the greatest heavyweight of all time, but he's also fighting Brazil. He's fighting a whole bunch of people who are chanting things about slitting his throat. Cyborg
on the card, but what's amazing about it is the card is so deep. You look at some of the fights that aren't getting love, Shogun versus Corey Anderson on there. The fight that I think you and I are most looking forward to, Demian Maia and Matt Brown. John Lineker taking on Rob Font. 12-1 as a mixed martial arts professional. Somehow I'm told that it's on Facebook prelims, it's Fight Pass prelims, it's a Little Nog and Pat Cummins. It is literally one of the most loaded cards you're ever going to see. Of course, the main card is outstanding. What fight are you really looking forward to in the undercard?
It's so shocking when we see these shows and it's like, oh, I'm really excited about the main event. Oh, and this fight, or the co-main, or oh, this matchup's cool. It's been a while since every single fight is great, and that's not no detriment. It's not an insult. I mean, when you go from 7 shows a year to 10 to 12 to 20 to 40, there's going to be, it's just, the nature of it is going to have to be that some are more loaded than others, but this one is stacked. Demian Maia and Matt Brown really is fascinating for a lot of reasons. For me, one of the most fascinating reasons was Matt Brown's desire for this fight. That's a beautiful thing, particularly if he can make it work. If he can get in there, if he can fight his way out of the clinch. That's a scary thing for him. He's very good in the clinch. He's very dangerous. He likes to take the Muay Thai clinch. Occasionally we'll see this from him. Do not do this with Demian Maia. Don't try to do that, Matt. That's not going to be your thing for this. But he fights his way into the clinch, gets his elbows and knees going, and roughs you up in there. I think he is fighting Demian Maia. He's fighting Brazil. Like I said, they're all fighting Brazil, which is crazy. He's also fighting himself a little bit. His own nature, who he is at his root, is a hairy-chested animal who drives himself into things, forward into things. You drive yourself forward into Demian Maia. He has his heart rate is very low and his breathing is very shallow, and he calmly tricks you to a trip into the ground, and as you go to get up, he gets your back and you're in a whole lot of trouble. So can Matt Brown stay out of this? That's the question. And he wants this fight. He chose this fight, so I'm fascinated to see the way he approaches this
Demian Maia, so slick on the ground. It's just all of his setups to get you in the areas that he wants to get you, and I think the longer this fight goes, it's better for Demian Maia. You talked about Matt Brown and how good he is in the clinch. When we think of Matt Brown and how destructive he is, that's where he's the most destructive. And is it to the point where as soon as Demian Maia, if the clinch happens, try your best to inflict as much damage as humanly possible, or is it fight from the outside?
Yeah, we're right there. Looks pretty good. I mean, he's not rear naked choking you on the end of your knuckles. This looks pretty good if you can get there, but Demian Maia will roll for a leg there. It's a tricky situation, and even in this, in top position, you can't be safe there. But there's a really fascinating, at least fascinating if you're a nerd who's curious about these types of things, there's a fascinating thing about the psychological approach to these kinds of things. The approach with Gunnar Nelson was that you cannot think, I do not want to do X. I got to stay off the ground. I must not engage him. I've got to, and outline all the things not to do. If you do that, often you will find yourselves doing it anyway. So he's saying, I can't, think of the ground as hot lava and that I have to stay off it. Well, look what happened to him. Same thing with Matt Brown. If he's so concerned with not being taken down, he's gonna get taken down. In a strange kind of way, he's got to find that right little pocket for 15 minutes of accepting the clinch when he can do his thing in it, even working his trips. He's got really cool trips from the tie clinch. Work those, back out, reset, and do it again. It's a very hard assignment for him, but I'm excited to see him try it, and I'm a huge fan of Demian Maia. So no matter how this thing goes, it's going to be a cool one.
We've talked about the developing 170-pound division, one of the best divisions ever in mixed martial arts. Two very, very exciting fighters. Do you expect this fight, the Maia-Brown fight, to be the most exciting fight on the card? Or are you looking at it as a martial artist, seeing how each man will try to solve the other riddle?
Looking at it as a martial artist and seeing how each man will solve the other riddle, for me, is the most exciting thing. And I think this raises a question. I know our audience is smarter than most of them. I'm not saying that because you're sitting right here in the room with me. I'm saying that because we know that to be true. You don't watch this channel to watch, a conversation about, where guys fit in the rankings and what's next for whoever. You can get that anywhere. Our audience is very intelligent, and they're able to have a discussion about what is exciting. And the argument about what's exciting, we all know when two guys hammer each other and one of them falls down, that is exciting. But it's one type of excitement. This fight, even if it's 45 seconds and it's a clever trip to a back to whatever, or it's Matt Brown landing the right thing, 45 seconds of smart can be the most exciting of all.
Very true, but what can also be exciting is some guys throwing down or girls throwing down, like we would see in that Yancy Medeiros Francisco Trinaldo fight, a fight that is definitely flying under the radar. And we have to give props to our friends at Evolução Thai, Maurizio Veo and Andre Dida. They're doing an excellent job. This is one of those fight teams that isn't getting enough respect. They're in Brazil.
And they've descended from
the Shooter Box Academy. So I think we're going to get some electrifying fireworks in Curitiba, because Trinaldo, I think, is one of the most underrated guys at 155 pounds.
I agree. Chad Laprise, in my opinion, is a top 5 striker at 155 pounds. And he, just like we were just talking about, I can't go to the ground with him. I can't go to the ground with him. Next thing you find yourself on the ground.
Right.
Chad studied his right hand, his overhand right, so much, and it was so impressive. He studied it in desire to learn about it and prepare for it, and he overstudied it to the point that that's what hit him. You almost make it a self-fulfilling prophecy. You must be free to perform in there. Trinaldo is a very skilled guy, and there's a really unique way that they strike down at Evolução Thai. On first glance, it looks improvisational, like it's just a bit of chaos, and there's elements of chaos. But Maurizio is very, very, very smart. He comes up with clever, weird combinations of how the human body moves into other ways and traps that are set within combinations. Very fun to watch.
Pat Cummins, as I mentioned, also going into enemy territory, taking on Little Nog, the legend from Brazil. However, Pat Cummins helping Fabrizio Verdum get ready for Stipe Miocic using his wrestling. So I know he's going to be prepared because, Verdum is one of the most complete guys, certainly at the heavyweight limit.
This is a tough fight for Little Nog, but in Brazil, filled with heart and desire, he can find a way to get it done, but he may also find himself on the bottom a lot. And you're right, Verdum, one of the things he needs to deal with Stipe is the wrestling. I just did a breakdown you can find on UFC.com and on this fight, and I got to figure that Stipe stays away from the wrestling wherever possible. Use it maybe to get a little respect, but don't follow him to the ground. We'll see. That ground's hot lava if you're on the ground with Verdum.
Do you honestly think that Stipe Miocic will even think about putting the fight down to the ground at all, considering how dangerous Fabrizio Verdum is? If you look at the countdown show, Verdum recognized as one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the game. But he's like, I need to be extra sharp. Why not work with the best, maybe one of the best right now, certainly in Cobrinha, to sharpen those abilities?
We've talked around both sides of this angle. Do you say to yourself, I must stay off the ground? Because sometimes psychologically that tricks you into finding yourself on the ground. Other times you say, I'm willing to go wherever, and you're willing to go wherever, you end up in hot lava with Verdum. It is a very tricky psychological approach to staying away from somebody's strengths.
UFC 198 goes down this weekend in Brazil. Tune into FN this Thursday at 7 p.m. as we present a 1-hour preview show leading into all the action in Curitiba.